everybody. Marc here from Maple Capital Partners, and I've got a friend here, Punit Naran, who is also a fellow real estate investor, also operates in a lot of the same markets that we do. And I'm going to take a little bit of a turn, a little bit of a twist from what we normally do on these calls, on these videos, where we talk about the multifamily market and the economic landscape. And we're going to talk a little bit more about something that's personal to me and also Punit, talking about balancing a W-2 job, particularly a W-2 that's demanding. We're both working in corporate America alongside of building a real estate empire. And so, Punit, maybe you could open up by maybe just introducing yourself and what your background is, both on the professional side and the real estate side.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the intro, Marc. Glad to be here. So yeah, I'm based out of Louisville, Kentucky. Work for brands, the parent company at the KFC, Pizza Hut, and Taco Bell. My background in corporate America is cloud technologies. So I've been doing this for, it's called about 8 years. I got my undergraduate in computer information systems from the University of Louisville, and then I got my MBA through Indiana University. Yeah, more specifically, my team specializes in enterprise cloud platforms that we use to automate and simplify IT processes for the above store corporate area of the company. And then we're currently scaling a platform to take it from domestic use cases to the international markets as well. So from a corporate side, that's kind of my background. From a real estate side, right before the pandemic, started getting into single family and multifamily investing. I started off with a couple quick flips, which helped generate some quick capital, which I was able to redeploy into longer term assets, and then continue to play that rinse and repeat game of acquiring more doors, maybe selling some things off, getting more capital in, and then deploying it again. From the side note there, that's kind of how I met Marc. So they purchased a property that me and a few partners had looked at previously, and I noticed online that the property had sold as a picture of some new owners, and I was like, oh, I wonder who these guys are, and I found Marc online, reached out, and kind of began our friendship from there.
Awesome story, man. I'm curious, just because I know your story, but for some of the people that may be watching this, what led to you thinking about even going into real estate from having a W-2 that sounds like it's really challenging, really great work that you do, and what led you to go from that to building up this real estate on the side?
Yeah, I think everyone has something that drives them to that point. Look, whether they're trying to get into real estate or they're already in it, along with the W-2. Some people are doing it to escape their W-2 careers, which is totally fine. For me, I was really enjoying what I do. I still really enjoy what I do, but I was looking for that extra income, probably standpoint. Like, you do the stock market investing, you do this, you do that, but you're just looking to diversify in different areas that maybe not everyone is into, right? And so you start exploring, seeing what's out there, and you find real estate. It has the tax advantages, it has the appreciation, and then you have the cash flow while you wait. So that really drew my interest. The depreciation helps offsetting some W-2 income. There are some limitations there, but overall, another avenue to build wealth. And so I wasn't necessarily trying to escape my W-2, just trying to pad the income with additional things to maybe someday build generational wealth. Just coming from a household of immigrants, it's one of those, like, entrepreneurs almost embedded in your head. So while you enjoy your W-2, like, man, what else can I do out there? What more can I do to continue to build this life that maybe my parents or before them didn't get to do, that I hope to accomplish in my lifetime?
Yeah, I love that you said that, because that's something that we also have in common, is our parents are immigrants. And so I think that's really afforded us a huge benefit in that we can have kind of one foot in both worlds, where we have that immigrant entrepreneurial kind of background, but also been afforded the opportunity to be educated in this country and job opportunities in this country and things like that. So I find that that's kind of common amongst a lot of real estate investors that I know that also juggle a W-2. So that's kind of an interesting data point there. Now, I'm curious, what were some maybe early times where it was difficult? Because everybody thinks of doing this real estate thing while they do their job is easy and anybody can do it and you can manage these properties from afar and it's all passive income. But what were some times where you had to maybe juggle those two things, where you kind of had to be creative or come up with a solution, or how do you manage it?
Yeah, so for me, I was blessed being here in Louisville, Kentucky. It's one of the top landlord rental property markets in the country. As you're aware, of course, you got doors here. So not having to manage things afar was a really good blessing for time management, right? I'm not having to coordinate with a whole bunch of people outside of town, traveling, et cetera. What really was the most important piece still, though, was time management. I mentioned I started before the pandemic, especially during the pandemic. When there were deals out there, you're working your W-2 during the day, right? You couldn't just pop out and go to showings and do these things. And so that became pretty difficult. So I think that I probably lost out on a lot of deals just because I couldn't be flexible during that 8 to 5, 9 to 5 window. And of course, during the pandemic, things were flying off the shelves. So I had to get creative. When I initially started looking at deals, I was looking at things that were on the market. And then I realized so is everybody else. And so I don't get an edge there. What I had to really do is network, right? You are who you surround yourself with. And so I'm a pretty open, transparent person. I feel like I can make conversation with a brick wall. So for me, I was like, I'm going to start getting out here. Let me identify some people that I know in the market that are real estate guys. Let me talk to my real estate agents that I've been working with. Like, hey, do you know some people that maybe just want to sit down and talk? And that fostered some really, really good relationships. It led to a couple of really strong partnerships that I have today of guys that are 100% real estate, which we were able to partner up. We each had our own strengths in the partnership. And so we brought that along to be able to do these deals. And so that time constraint kind of went away when I started to partner with a couple of guys that really had the time on their side. They were 100% real estate and they could source these deals, whether they were mostly off market, some on market. They were my eyes and ears. So it's true. Network, right? Just feel out the best connections you can in the markets you're trying to invest in and just go right at it. Obviously, do your due diligence, right? There's plenty of stories out there of people that maybe looked good on the outside and were disastrous on the inside, and they burned a lot of investors' capital. They maybe didn't manage the project as intended, and maybe their performance were completely out of this world. Didn't make a lot of sense looking back in. So obviously be aware of those things, but it doesn't hurt to network and find the right group of people. Marc, I think you and I've talked about this before. It's like you can find the money if the deal makes sense. And so that's kind of the philosophy that I've used, and I continue to find deals here and there. Obviously, a little less now that the rates are high and things just aren't moving on the market.
Yeah, that's great. There's a ton of information there that I think will help a lot of people. Now, the two things that I kind of took away there were the aspect of time management, which is obviously going to be key. You're dealing with the same 24 hours that everybody else has, but you're trying to get basically 2 careers packed into that. And then also the other thing was networking and partnerships, and the fact that you said that you could find people that maybe do have the time during the day to be able to go to those property showings and forming partnerships with those folks and bringing each of your own areas of strength to the table. Now, I'm curious for the former one that was mentioned, that's the time management side. What are some things that you do, or what are some suggestions that you can make to some people that are having a hard time managing their time, either tools or habits that you've gotten into or things that have helped you along the way?
Yeah, for me, I try to keep it simple. So there's obviously plenty of tools out there. What I found that works best for me is I have my reminders app on my phone, and I have it kind of split up. Here's all tasks I need to accomplish today in my day-to-day role. And then here's a task outside of that, whether it's tasks at my home, whether it's tasks for real estate stuff, etc. What I found, I've generally been an early riser. So what I found is that if you get up early, you have a few hours of peace in the morning where you can really focus and get in a lot of stuff. So for me, it's when I use that time to do a lot of due diligence on properties that I was looking at, or current properties. Maybe we were upping rents or strategizing on how we're going to either renovate the property, raise rents, refi, etc. So all those things, I found really good focusing time in the mornings and then really good focusing time in the evenings. Now, I don't want that to be misconstrued as I was always getting up every single morning doing real estate for X hours, and then I'm doing it from 5 o'clock till I go to bed, right? You should find a balance. Real estate shouldn't be, at first when you're building your foundational knowledge, sure, there's plenty of things you can read and watch to understand, right? But it shouldn't be something that consumes you in a bad way. I kind of learned that early on. It's like, I don't have to eat, breathe, and sleep it. If I have a strong foundational knowledge and I really devote the time during that phase of real estate, then everything else is okay, right? It's kind of second nature for us to get online and maybe someone sends us an email of a deal and we look at it. And generally in a few minutes, we can see if this is something we're going to spin wheels behind or not. And then continue to network, right? I found some really cool friends out of networking for real estate. It's friends that we haven't done a deal together. It's maybe because they're in a different portion now where they've got enough doors and they've paused, but they're my backbone, right? I can go back, ask them 7 different questions. I'm like, hey, am I overthinking this? Maybe I'm not thinking enough about this. And they're great people to have in your back pocket, but also really good friends. So networking, I don't think is bad in any way. You can build great real estate connections. Then you can also probably build lifelong friends.
Yeah, that is such great advice, man. That's actually some of the same counsel that I give to anybody that comes to me that's starting out in real estate. They don't have the experience. I tell them a couple of things. I tell them, get on bigger pockets, read a few articles every day. I recommend a few books that they can check out, a few podcasts they can check out. But I say, that's all great, but there's no substitute for the knowledge of people who have been there, done that. So getting to those real estate meetups, getting to those in-person meetups and meeting people who are going to provide you with that information, because I'm sure it was the same for you, but starting off, I would read all these books, but then when it came time to do the first deal, it was like I learned exponentially more actually doing that deal than I would have. And it's great that you have to educate, but at some point you have to take action as well. So part of that taking action can be just showing up to a real estate meetup. I mean, I wasn't an extroverted guy by any means. So getting to those early on in my real estate career was pretty difficult, but you got to do it. You got to get out there and network and meet a lot of people and, find out who you like, who you can learn from, and hopefully they see something in you. You can provide some value to them. But I think that's such great advice. So with that, maybe we'll switch a little bit over to, I wanted to discuss kind of what are some of the pros and cons of having a W-2 while you also are building a real estate portfolio. So, maybe if you could touch at a high level, a couple that are in your mind.
Yeah, again, this is all personal, right? Everyone's situation might be different. It's in the same boat or looking to get in the same boat. But the pros for me is stability right off the bat. Right? You have a reoccurring paycheck that's coming in that can support and feed your family, fund your lifestyle, whether that, that's living in an apartment, living in a house, having a car, whatever that may be, just your general expenses. The second and probably very important one in today's day and age is the sound mind knowing that you have healthcare coverage, right? When you're fully on your own, healthcare coverage is astronomical. I've seen my parents' premiums jump to an unbelievable number. I think they're up to like $2,500 a month in health insurance, self-employed. So that's a big weight off your shoulder. You don't have to worry about it. And then the third is I will go back to networking. I've met some really good people in my W-2 that are friends of mine and those that have also have some form of real estate as well outside of their W-2. But so another avenue for me to bounce ideas off of, if I'm ever struggling with something real estate related, it's nothing for me to be in the office and kind of walk over to a friend of mine and you're like, hey, I know you got 25 doors. Just quick question, struggling with this tenant doing this, what would you do? So really networking can be done anywhere, even in your corporate world. Well, one more pro would be I really love what I do. Cloud technology is something as a little kid, I was fooling with technology, trying to build little PCs and things like that. So that's really embedded in my head. I really love what I do. And so if you love what you do, then it makes your W-2 so much easier, right? Also harder to ever give up if that time came, yes. The cons is the flexibility of time. Again, like you said, we all live the same 24 hours, but being 100% dedicated to W-2 between your contracted hours, your 9 to 5, your 8 to 5, and then doing everything else really means that you got to cram a lot of things in very little time, which is fine when things are kind of slower and things are spaced out cool, or like during tax time, or maybe you have 4 different renovations going on because a turn of units, like things get a little more hectic in your life during then. So for folks that have a partner and children, that probably becomes very, very, very complicated, probably very stressful actually. So those are the cons, I think, of the W-2. Yeah, I don't think I think of another con, really just flexibility.
Yeah, and I'm with you there. I think, like you said in the beginning, it really depends on everybody's own risk appetite, their own desire in life, and how they want to spend their time. I think something that we both have in common is that we actually really love real estate. So, in addition to having a career that you're really passionate about, I think in order for you to take that extra time out of your nights, your mornings, your weekends, you really have to love what you're doing. And so I would say that's a natural prerequisite for wanting to start in real estate as an active investor. Now, there are tons of ways that folks can get involved. I've invested in passive. I have other investors that have invested with us passively. And that's a great avenue as well if you don't want to make those sacrifices. But for somebody who does, it is totally doable. And I think that should be the biggest takeaway from the conversation that we're having is that where there's a will, there's a way. There are systems today. There are technologies today that never existed before to help you be able to balance all the unique challenges that you face in real estate and then also getting it done on the W-2 side. So with that, Punit, I think we're going to probably close out here. But before we do, is there anything we didn't touch upon or anything you wanted to kind of mention for folks who are evaluating whether they want to get started with real estate?
Yeah, just one note for me that's really helped me is it's 100% okay to fail. I know failure is a lot harder when there's capital involved, right? Because it becomes an emotional thing at that point. You and I probably have a million stories about this. There's some path, some way we've failed, and I've probably learned more in those failures than I did in any textbook strategy, than anything that someone could tell me on the positive stance, like real estate's great, sunshine, rainbows. So I would honestly say, don't fear to fail. I would try to fail fast. So that way you could learn, pivot your approach and continue down that path. But there were times where like on short-term flips that I had where things just changed, right? COVID changed a lot of things. Costs went up immensely. and that could have affected people in the middle of flips. Markets changed. So for me during that time, I had a couple deals where I was like, oh no, what did I do? If you try to keep emotions out of it and go back to your fundamental strategies, you look at your exit plan A, look at your exit plan B and C, and be really sound in those approaches, you'll be okay. I had 2 deals that really went south. And when I backed emotion out of it, I understand I have my capital risk, so let's back that emotion out. Then what can I do? I found very clear strategies of how I could sell, or I could bring someone on who was a trusted construction professional who could come in and do a lot of the work with their avenue of people at a lower rate, and then split the profits at the exit. And so that way I was able to preserve my capital. I may have made a single digit return on the deal, but it didn't mean that I was stuck with a half completed project over budget, stewing on what's going to happen to my capital. So always be willing to learn fast and fail fast.
For sure. And it's when you're in those situations that you're forced to adapt and learn and be creative and all that stuff. All the tools in your tool belt get sharpened during those times. So
Absolutely.
couldn't agree more. That's a mic drop moment there. So wanted to thank you, Punit, for all of your time and your knowledge that you shared with us. I really appreciate it. And if anybody wants to get in touch with you to learn more, or learn more about what you're up to these days, how would they do that?
Yeah, I think you have my email. Just feel free to share that out. Any questions, comments, if it's anything that you ever want to bounce off from me, feel free to shoot me an email. Be happy to talk.
Okay, sounds great. Well, thanks. We'll sign off with that, as we always do at Maple Capital Partners. Invest wisely, folks, and we're here when you need us. Bye.